Hello and welcome to episode number, because everything's gone a bit tits up at the moment, of the Bad Psychics podcast. I nearly said my old channel name because Jeter put it in my head. This is a great start. um, we are doing our Indycar season and predictions review episode. As always, I am joined by a couple of idiots. This week, I predict that just like Santino, he's most likely to be a walking red flag. It's Jeter.
Yep, thanks. I appreciate the shout out to America's favorite driver. And by America, I mean the people who drape themselves in America.
uh, and I predict that Will Powers what he has to have whenever his sister's asleep in the next room. It's Michael.
God, here we go.
That's one of your best ones, Z.
There's really not much I can say about these, is there, without it just sounding worse.
How are you both?
Never better.
Michael?
I mean, I was sort of hoping you'd slip up and say welcome to Wish List. That was where my brain went to.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's going to be a reference. Actually, to be fair, most of our viewers probably would understand it, given there's about three of them.
It's the second wish list mentioned this episode.
Anyway, yes. So IndyCar season review. I mean, Michael, I know you dipped in and out, so I'll give you the slightly easier question of what do you feel like the biggest talking point has been this season?
I mean, from my, slightly less in-depth perspective of IndyCar, it's very much just how damn good Alex Palou is. It was the whole, he basically, I think it was like a month or so in, it's like, well, Alex Palou has won, now what? So yeah, it's, I think there's a bit of that, and then obviously the more recent thing has been the stuff with certain Mr. Herter and the slightly odd position that he's found himself in for next year. But yeah, in terms of actual IndyCar directly stuff, it's very much just how damn good Alex Palou is at driving car around in circles or not even circles sometimes. It doesn't matter. He's just really, really quick.
Great. And Jeter, any particular like season highlights for you? I know you've watched more than Michael, given we've watched some of it together.
Yeah, I think that there were a couple really big crashes this year that like stick out in memory compared to prior years. There also were a whole bunch of incidents of people getting really testy with each other. Maybe that's just because it's my first season following following Indy, but that was something that was notable to me. And also the lack of a silly season with, basically no one losing their seat mid-season.
Yeah, yeah. Silly season appears to be starting now. I think we'll touch on that probably a little more when we get to some of the people involved. Anyway, let's switch to spreadsheet in a whole. So we are going to start by looking at our placements and how they correlate with what actually happened. So to begin with, we'll start with the bottom and work our way up. In P27, we all predicted it would be Devlin DeFrancesco. I'll be honest. Aside from a couple of weirdly good qualifying performances, I barely noticed DeFrancesco this season. For the most part, I forgot he existed. I think the reason that was allowable, though, was the fact that he didn't even manage to do a good job of being the worst. In the end, we had Jacob Abel, who, frankly, at least in my opinion, Jeter looked out of his depth.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, when I was watching, I mean, it's a large enough grid that, when you're watching the races, especially with the coverage, um you're seeing a lot more of the front than the back. And I can't recall seeing much of Abel, which presumably is a result of the fact that he was more at the back than the front.
Yes, I think the the most coverage that I think Abel really got this season was for not making it into the Indy 500. Um, but you know, so we'll do this a little bit at a time. So switching to the scoring page, because the scoring for this episode, points are bad, and for every placement you are out, you earn a point. If you get a placement exactly, that's -3 points to help your total. We all said the exact same thing for P27, and we were all slightly wrong, which means that everybody puts 1 point on the board for 27th place. Next is where we start disagreeing. Obviously, P26 is where DeFrancesco actually ended up. We've got our predictions were a Schwartzman, a Daly, and an Abel. But as I said, ends up being DeFrancesco. Michael, surely Devlin can't get another season, can he?
I mean, you always get it in motorsport. You get those guys who just seem to hang around forever and ever and ever, and you never quite like. It always feels like this is the last one, right? This is the last one, right? No, they're still there. Like it's not just like obviously not. I know this from an F1 perspective more so, but it's not just F1. Even like you'll get it in other racing series. You'll get it in like lower categories as well. Like you could tell me Sean Galeil's still in F2, and I'd believe that at this point. So you will get those people where somehow they just stick around in motorsport. So I will never say, like, even if logically a driver should not be sticking around in a series for longer than they have done, people find ways. I will never go, there's no chance in hell that they'll stick around. It could be like the worst driver in the world. It could be, it could be somehow Mahavir Raghunathan showing up in Indycar, and I still wouldn't be shocked that he somehow found a way in at this point. That's how motorsport works.
But yes, the answers we gave, as I said, Schwartzman, Daly, and Abel. Schwartzman will come on to finish P24, Daly P18, and Abel we've already discussed. So what that means for points is... Oh, I should say as well, this has reminded me of something that I did notice when I was scoring, but that is going to confuse the viewers, and I apologise. For some reason, at the time of recording this episode, despite in every other episode me putting the host on the left and then everybody else alphabetically, Michael is in the middle, but Jeter is on the right, despite in the cameras Jeter being in the middle and Michael being on the right. So just from this point, remember, Michael's score middle, Jeter's score right. It will be easier when you can actually see the names, but right now you can't because there's too much to scroll. But yes, that does mean that Michael gets the first unfortunate big score bump of 8 points. I get 2, and Jeter gets 1 and takes a very, very early lead.
I have one other thing I'd like to add. I saw this tweet earlier this morning about Devlin DeFrancesco. He's broken a record in IndyCar. He's the first IndyCar driver ever in the 114 years of the series to have 50 plus starts with no top 10s.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, that
just thought the group should know.
That sounds about right. As I said, over 1 lap, he can be quite quick. He's made the Fast 6, I think, a couple of times this season. He just has the fuel and tyre management skills of a spoon. But yes. Right, next we have P25. I went for Stingray Rob. Michael went for Jacob Abel. And Jeter went for Connor Daly. And it ended up being what I said. It was Stingray Rob, 25th place. Jeter, I know you love him for his name, but to me, it looks like he's leaving, at the very least, leaving his team. Do you think he's leaving the sport?
I hope not, but that's partially because I enjoy the content that him and his partner put out on social media, and because I think his name is awesome. It wasn't a great season for Stingray. I think it's a tricky one where, in this series especially, you have to perform because there's just so many drivers who are capable of taking seats, and money can be a little bit tight, and results make money. So I would love to see Stingray Rob racing again next year, but if he ended up out of a seat, there are plenty of drivers who are capable of driving an IndyCar at an equal, if not higher level, who are not yet signed. So when the game of musical chairs ends, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with no seat.
Fair enough. But yes, aside from my correct answer, we had Michael with Abel, and who was obviously last again. Daly, who was 18th. Both of you severely underestimating Daly, but we'll touch on that more later. But it means that for P25, I drop 3 points. Michael gains 2, and Jeter gains 7. Next, 24th, it ended up being Robert Schwartzman. Michael couldn't quite win Rookie of the Year, but Schwartzman, I mean, does a couple of encouraging performances and a very unexpected Indy 500 pole position, does that do enough to merit him keeping the seat for a second season?
I mean, potentially, yeah. It's obviously he's got, like I said, he's a rookie going in a new team as well with Prema. It's all a bit of new on new. There's always going to be growing pains in there. I think when you said the being able to get a pole position at Indy is shows that there is pace there. Schwartzman has shown, like I've probably spoken about it at the start of the season. Obviously, I've seen bits of Schwartzman in his junior career and there is definitely a very quick driver there. It potentially is just a bit of consistency in that, and there are potentially he's not the quickest driver ever, but there's definitely on pure driving merit, there is, I think, enough justification for him to get another. And like I said, it's in a new team as well, so there's always that little caveat of it's not just him learning the sport; it's the team learning the sport and everything. So obviously, you will say it's a comparison against his teammate, but it's someone else who has done a bit more in IndyCar than he had going into the season. And again, not a slouch in his own right that he's up against in Cal Milot as a comparison. But yeah, I think that like I said, there is enough in there to show that it's worth persevering with someone who has shown that maybe consistency is the issue more than outright pace.
But yes, for 24th place, I said Abel, again, finished last. That'll be the last time we mention him. Jeter went for Nolan Siegel, who finished a couple of places higher. Michael possibly showed a lack of in-depth knowledge for the first time by choosing David Malukas. Put it this way, I just had to do a little scroll up to get Malukas's actual position in shot on the screen. So maybe we'll touch on that a bit more when we get to him. But that means that for P24, I get 3 points. Jeter wins that one with 2 points, and Michael adds 13 points to his score.
It's on brand. What are you on about? That was the plan all along. It's in my name.
Malukas total 13.
Yeah, that is what it clearly stands for.
Episode title, book it.
Right, okay. P23 ended up being Louis Foster, which Jeter got bang on. So Jeter, I'll come to you about Louis Foster. I think similar to Schwartzman, for me, a bit of a mixed bag with a pole position, some good performances, also some rubbish. Given he had the scholarship for this year as the Indy Next champion from the season before, do you think we will see more from Louis Foster?
Was that to me?
Yes.
Probably. He had a really good stretch in the middle of the season. Kind of starting with like the Indy road course. Where he had a whole slew of like top 15s, which for a rookie racing at not one of the larger teams, you know, those are good results. I think he struggled in that there were a lot of people who were moving around a lot this season, and a couple of bigger results would have really helped. And he was involved in a couple crashes this year. I know that I think it was Detroit, that one was pretty ugly. But yeah, I don't know. I think as the top rookie of the year, I'm expecting we'll see more from Louis Foster. But I'm interested to see what I'm expecting there to be a big shakeup of the grid coming into next year, and I don't know where everyone's going to land. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what sort of situation he's in next season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that he probably deserves a second chance. That being said, you said that him being Rookie of the Year, I mean, last year's Rookie of the Year was Linus Lundqvist, who finished about 8 spots higher, I think, and still couldn't find a seat. So, but yes, for this one, Michael said Siegel was almost there. Jeter, as I said, very accurate. I went for the earliest appearance of Kiffin Simpson, who might be the one that I have to eat crow on this season, but we'll see. But anyway, for scoring purposes, Jeter drops 3 points from his score. Michael a respectable 1 point, and I add 6 onto mine. Next, P22, we've mentioned him a couple of times, was Nolan Siegel. Michael, Siegel, I believe, has his contract up. It might be next year he has his contract up. Either way, when he's at one of the big 4 teams right now, is he showing enough for a young driver to merit hanging on to, or might we have come to the end of the road with the Siegel experiment?
It's always tricky when it comes to, how you want to judge young drivers. Because like I said, it's obviously compared to the other guys in the bigger teams, he's like the blatant standout one statistically that's struggling. But when like bigger teams take a punt on those younger drivers a lot of the time, they are willing to be, I'd say, more stubborn occasionally. It's they've gone, this is our guy. They're going to back him until it gets to a point where they they basically can't justify it at all. It's a matter of whether it's got to that point already. But like I said, normally teams like to be stubborn. I think even with McLaren's IndyCar driver messing about that they've done in the past, it feels like it seems like they've sort of gone, they've messed about because they've wanted to get to this point where they've wanted to back Siegel. Now that they have, it feels like they've almost potentially put themselves into the corner where they've backed him and they're going to be stubborn about it and stick with him at this point. Like that's sort of the impression that I get, at least. And, obviously, in a case where I believe he, like I said, he is under contract for next year as well, it's a lot more difficult when if it was, say, the contract was up, it's a lot easier for them to then go, okay, now we're going to move on. If he's under contract, it's a bit easier for them to go, we'll give it another year and see how he does. So I'd expect that they'll try and stick it out. Like I said, with a younger driver, there's always that chance that they will come good with that extra year of experience, because that extra year of experience is a much bigger jump than an older driver having, the 10th of their 10 years compared to, I'm not sure how many it is with Siegel exactly in IndyCar now, is it?
1.5, I think.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
he's
it's
also a weird situation. I don't know how much you know about this, Michael. I assume you know Z, but his family's really well off. He's of the various drivers on the grid, he's the one with the most financial backing from his family. The details are obviously not public, but I think being a pay driver, where I think his dad's net worth is close to $1 billion. Being a pay driver in this sort of series also will factor into his ability to stay at Arrow McLaren or otherwise, because they can afford to bring in sponsors or pay for the seat, which other drivers don't have.
Okay, so to me that's an interesting debate then. In our opinion, I realise that there isn't a difference. If you're paying for your seat, you are a pay driver. But is he a pay driver in the sense of he's a very good driver that is helped with family money? Or is he a driver that only has a seat because of family money? Where does Siegel fall on that scale?
I think that the answer to that question determines whether he stays at McLaren beyond his contract or not.
Interesting. That's an excellent way of not answering the question.
Well, I think he's a talented driver, but there's plenty of other talented drivers. Someone will give him a seat, but the question is he good enough? I think the family's well off, but I think at any of these big teams, McLaren can afford, they don't need a pay driver. It certainly helps to have a pay driver, but they can afford to fill the seats with 3 people who are very good drivers as long as they're pulling in money. They don't necessarily need someone who is just a pay driver. They're a big enough team and they're a big enough racing organization. And I'd say that I think if he doesn't deliver results next year, you're probably looking at filling the seat with someone new. But the money probably helped and will presumably ensure that he has a career in IndyCar if he wants one, or in another racing series if he wants one.
Yeah. Okay, so for P22, I said Foster, Michael said Simpson, and Jeter gave the first appearance to Graham Rahal. What that does for the scoring is it adds 1 point to my score, 3 points to Jeter's score, and 5 points to Michael's score. Scroll up a little bit. There we go. Right, we move on to P21. The correct answer was Callum Ilott for that one. I mean, Michael, Ilott, a brief F1 career. How do we rate his first season, given that he was the more experienced of the 2 Prema drivers, but as stated, Prema, very new team, no knowledge of most of the tracks. Where do we fall on P21 for him?
Yeah, it's always hard to judge what to expect of new teams coming in. Obviously, it's not the same as a new team coming into F1 and the stupid amounts of stuff it takes to do that. But new teams going into any category, whether they've had experience in other categories of motorsport before, it's always a tricky thing to come into. So it's hard to judge where exactly they should hold up as an individual. The only real benchmark is your teammate in a lot of these situations, and he's not blown Schwartzman away by any stretch of the imagination at all, but he has technically beaten him. But yeah, you might have expected a little bit more given the experience difference in IndyCar specifically between Eilert and Schwartzman, and like I said, Eilert in his time around Formula One, not in the junior categories there, always was a highly rated driver, one who a lot of people were frustrated wasn't given that chance in Formula One. He was in that sort of generation of young drivers who came through when there just weren't openings in F1 unless you were a Charles Leclerc, George Russell level junior Formula results. So yeah, Eilert is one who potentially you would have expected a little bit more, but again, it's hard to really judge when he's almost coming he's being forced into that experienced driver role within the new team when he's not wildly experienced. He's not complete rookie at motorsport. He's not a rookie at all in IndyCar, but it's a lot to ask of a relatively inexperienced driver to sort of be the to fully lead a new team like that. It's why you look at, say, Cadillac going into F1. They've gone Bottas and Perez, who've combined been in F1 for 20 odd years. That's what a lot of new teams will go to. So putting out in that position is a bit of a it's a tough one to deal with. But you look at his results, they're actually there is some level of progression towards the end of the season. So there is some sort of hope that potentially they're taking steps in the right direction, and sometimes that is the better way for it to go in those sort of first seasons, is start slow, get better, so you can see that there is improvements made, gives you that more confidence going into a second season. So yeah, I think Eilert, maybe you could have expected a bit more, but it's really hard to properly judge where you put a new team.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, as you say, big curve in the right direction towards the end of the season. I like Eilert. I think he seems quite funny. Some of his answers to media questions. My favourite one was, I think, the penultimate race when he had an absolute shocker in qualifying, and the pit reporter came up to him straight after and said, "What could you have done differently?" And he said, "Drive faster." I think we need a bit more of that. But anyway, for P21, I said Nolan Siegel. Michael got the wrong parameter and said Robert Schwartzman. We have a first mention of Christian Rasmussen. We'll come to him more later. What that does on scoring for P21, it adds 1 point to my score, 3 points to Michael's score, and a big fat 8 onto Jeter's score. Next, we go to P20. I mean, I'd like to talk a bit on this one because I think this is one that does require a bit more knowledge of the breadth of the season. Marcus Ericsson, P20. I think there is a strong chance that we do not see Ericsson back in Andretti. If we do, I think it's only because they don't want to pay off his contract, because I believe he's got 1 year left on it. Ericsson, the consistent comments around him this season have been must do better. I think he has been incredibly unfortunate. Will Buxton said on commentary a couple of races back that if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck. Constantly getting caught up in other people's mistakes, mechanical issues. The Indy 500 where he finished second, only to be disqualified for something that wasn't his fault, and which even the most ardent critics have said probably didn't massively impact his position, was mainly a technicality. The points from that, if he'd got them, we'd be having not a fully different conversation, but certainly a bit of a different one. I feel for Marcus Ericsson. I hope that we haven't seen the end of him in IndyCar. At this moment in time, I'd say I'm 50-50. But none of us got that right, or I think anywhere near, really. But our predictions for P20, I said Graham Rahal, Michael said Rinus VK, and Jeter said Callum Eilert. So for the scoring purposes, that means I add 1 point, Jeter adds 1 point, and Michael adds a big old 6. Next, we come to 19th place, which ended up going to Graham Rahal, or as I like to refer to him, Graham Stroll, because I firmly believe that he's only got a seat because his dad owns the team. I mean, Michael, how far away do you think we are from Graham Rahal calling it a day?
As long as Graham Rahal wants to, basically. I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's one of those situations where he's in the car as long as he wants to be in the car, which for all he wants, dude could be 50 odd driving around happily, you know. He'll be driving around at the back, but he'll be driving around. But yeah, it's one of those situations where basically it's he's just there because he wants to be there. Like there need be no other justification for it in terms of actually, you know, keeping him in the sport. So yeah, like he's been around for, like, even I know he's one of those names. Like I know that I hear the Rahal name and I know that's IndyCar. Like my brain just immediately ties that to IndyCar. So like that's how much you know that name is tied to the sport, that even I, as someone who vaguely knows it, knows the name. And so that's going to carry some level of weight in terms of keeping him in the sport as well. So yeah, he's around for as long as it winds the up, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, he's been running in the series for 17 years now. His dad owns a team. He has never managed to finish higher than 4th in the championship. He's had 6 wins in 278 races, which I will grant you makes the Stroll comparison a little strong. He is definitely a better driver than Lance Stroll, but I don't know. I just, at some point, surely there's a limit. But anyway, for P19, I said Callum Isla. Michael said Louis Foster, and Jeter said Robert Schwartzman. And so for the scoring, that's 2 points for me, 4 points for Michael, and 5 points for Jeter. Next, P18, we go to Connor Daly. And I'll be honest, Jeter, I think you are the one that got Daly the most wrong.
No.
No. And no, sorry. It's because I'm forgetting which way around the two are. Michael, you got Daly the most wrong. I mean, he's had an interesting season, given that, as I said on our first IndyCar episode, that he is generally the person who has the least natural funding and most requires like outside help to get a seat. Did his performances this season, given the car he was in, merit somebody taking a chance on him for next season?
I mean, there's definitely, like, you look through his results and there are, you know, the odd, like, pretty decent finish in there. It's not like there's, you know, he's just consistently been there, finished, but not really done anything. Like, there is an element of he is actually getting some decent results in there, you know, in spite of, like you said, who he's actually driving for and that. And there's a handful of drivers who have been, you know, who've performed noticeably worse than him. It's not like he's, you know, he's only ahead of people because their cars keep blowing up or whatever. Like, he is legitimately a capable driver. He is a capable racing driver. And sometimes, like, that is what you're going to get on the grid sometimes, is just a team will need someone who is capable, who is not, you know, that they know can, you know, has the experience of being in that category of racing before. So there's always going to be space for people like Connor Daly in, whatever, branch of motorsport you're in. But within IndyCar, someone like Connor Daly, I think there's always going to be, a team will need someone who can do a job. And they'll always turn to people like Connor Daly. So there's always going to be spots for him.
Yeah, I'd also like to jump in on my prediction. I remember there was a big controversy at the start of the season that his title sponsor pulled out. And I don't know whether this was the case for you, Michael, but when I saw that, I dinged him down because I thought he would lose his seat. And while Daly's an incredibly accomplished driver, I didn't think he'd make the whole season. If I did, I probably would have put him a little bit higher. But I didn't want to put someone super high that just lost millions of dollars worth of sponsorship money. And his seat was like very much up in the air. And I remember when we recorded the initial episode, I was like, Daly's a good driver. Who knows how long he has, though.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I will remind that whilst we used names for ease, because each car is its own entry, we did do it by car numbers, but that doesn't mean that Jesus wrong in what he's saying, because if Daly left his seat, you have no idea who replaces him. Could be better, could be worse. But yeah, so I said Remus VK, Michael said Stingray Rob, and Jesus said Kiffin Simpson for P18. What that does, if my mouse wants to behave itself, more episodes of me complaining about my mouse. I add 4 to my score, Michael adds 7 to his score, and Jeter adds 1?
Yeah, 1.
Cool. Right, next, P17, we get to Kiff Dog himself, Kiffin Simpson. I mean, Michael, you're wearing the shirt, it feels like, to discuss a Caymanian driver. Real big step forward for Kiffin Simpson this season.
Yeah, he was one that I remember at the start when we were doing all these. It was a bit of a hard one to judge. Obviously, he's in one of the bigger teams with Chip Ganassi, but he's also, he's a younger driver, so there's always that element of, is there going to be progression? Obviously, looking at him in the previous year, he'd not done anything spectacular. But there again, like I said, it's young drivers. You never know how well they're going to do after that first year. That first year is obviously it's 100% of their time in the sport they're coming off the back of. So there's always going to be room for progression. There definitely has seemed to be a level of progression with Kiffin Simpson. Not all of a sudden, he's not going to suddenly be challenging for the title next year or anything like that. It's not that level of progression. But this is why sometimes it is worth just sort of sticking with the younger drivers, giving them that opportunities. Like if they don't do great in that first year, you sort of understand they're getting used to this. Not every driver is going to come in and be like. I'm always going to turn to an F1 example, but everyone's Lewis Hamilton nearly winning the title in their first year. There is an element of having to get used to, not just stepping up between, carries or stepping between different branches of motorsport. Even the most experienced people, like you could take the most experienced drivers from Formula One, stick them in IndyCar, and they wouldn't be winning the stuff, winning straight away. Even some of the better ones wouldn't necessarily be going in and dominating. It takes time to learn. And for younger drivers, that's even more important. So giving them that year or so to develop first and then seeing if there is that level of progression is genuinely really important. I think it's something that there's a lot. I think in general across basically everything at this point in life, but in sports especially, there is a real lack of patience sometimes, especially when it comes to people just like spectators. Especially, I think there is a real lack of understanding that not everyone is going to come in straight at the top of their game. There just needs to sometimes be an element of having a bit of patience with it, and people will get better. And I think Kevin Simpson's definitely taken a step in the right direction this year.
Excellent. So I lose my train of thought. Yes. So for P17, I said Connor Daly, Michael said Graham Rahal, and Jeter said it would be Alex Rossi. which means in points terms, I get 1 point, Gita and Michael both get 2 points. Just a reminder, if you are not focusing, points be bad. Right, on to P16, and I feel like as we established on the first episode, as the owner of the Santino is Love, Santino is Life Twitter account, I feel we should come to Gita for this one. How do we sum up Ferrucci's 2025?
I don't know that the words exist to do so. He When he decides that he wants to drive, he's a very capable driver. When he decides that on the day he just wants to shunt people off the track, he's also very capable of it. And Michael will appreciate this reference. This morning, actually, I was watching The Phantom Menace, and he reminds me a lot of Sebulba. He's a very capable driver that just loves trying to wreck people.
But Sebulba would win. Like, Sebulba won a lot of the time. That's a bit different. Like, it worked for Sebulba.
I mean,
Regardless, it's Ferrucci loves racing on the edge of what is allowed and often goes too far.
yeah.
And that was evident this season with multiple wrecks. He was constantly involved in media crises, but he also had a couple really good results. And I just think it's one of those things of like, I don't know if there's a team. I don't know if there's a team principal, an engineer, etc., that can really unlock the sort of talent that he has, because I don't think it's debatable that he's a capable driver, more than capable when he wants to, and I just don't know if anyone's ever going to be able to get him to that point consistently.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. In terms of what we predicted for P16, I said Christian Rasmussen. Gita gave us our second mention of David Malukas, and it was still too low. But Michael gets his first bang on with Ferrucci finishing in 16th, proving himself to be the bigger Ferrucci fan of the two. And as we look at the scores, it adds 3 to mine, 5 to Gita's, and -3 for Michael. Next up, we go to P15. I will talk on this one because not only am I a big fan of Rossi's podcast with James Hinchcliffe, I also got P15 bang on. Rossi's first season with Ed Carpenter Racing. I think it's in race form. Rossi still seems to have it. Still seems to have that knack of being able to overtake some cars, being able to make some moves, defend when he needs to. The main issue for me has been kind of connecting an entire weekend up. It feels like if he qualifies well, the strategy team screw him over. If he qualifies badly, they'll have a good race and get him some points. He's very much felt, perhaps fittingly as an ex-Ferrari Junior driver, he's felt like the Ferrari of the IndyCar paddock this season. But yeah, in scoring terms, that does obviously mean I get my second -3. Michael gets 2 points, and Gita collects a big fat 10 for this one.
Yeah,
Next,
not great.
yeah. Next we move to P14. That ended up being Remus VK. I mean, I'll go to Michael in the hope that he checked like IndyCar news to at least do some research before this episode. VK has just left Dale Coyne Racing to pursue other opportunities, he has said, but very much looking to stay in IndyCar. Where do we see him next season, and does he deserve to be there? And this will be funny if you haven't actually looked into it.
There's this thing called I have Google up right now. There's a lot of what I'm doing right now is me quickly flicking through things, thinking, what can I read and learn very quickly? But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a tricky one to look. So I'm trying to look at like where he could actually end up going if he's trying to stay in IndyCar next year, and it's like a lot of what I'm looking at is going, is that really, is that going to be some massive improvement? Equally, like even if there was an opening at one of the big teams, say they did like pay off, say out Marcus Ericsson got his contract paid off, or they were trying to find a spot somewhere else for him, would they really? Is VK really where they're going to be? The big teams are going to be looking. Honestly, you look through his results over the years, and he seems like the stereotypical, just like middle of the pack driver. It's he's good, but is that what a lot of the big teams are going to want to go for? Are they going to want to go for him? So potentially it's him backing himself. Drivers are always going to do that. Every driver, worth anything in motorsport is going to back themselves to think, I can go quicker than everyone else. But it's like I said, it's a tricky one to understand exactly if there is an exact plan for where where he's trying to go. Whether there is one of the bigger teams has got an opening that they decide that VK is the solution for. So it's my lack of full knowledge of IndyCar is probably showing very much right now. But he, like, from everything that I know of it and everything that I've seen of VK, it's potentially a bigger team to take a punt on him, but it's not like he's one that I'm looking at going, he's screaming out of, he should be in a bigger team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we, for audience's benefit, we definitely have like a gradient of IndyCar interest in that I'm an obsessive. Jeter watches when he can and sort of follows it. Michael very much more of a casual, and that's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do think for most people, Rinus VK is one of the most highly regarded drivers. I accept that you look at his results on paper, they look very middle of the road, but they're very middle of the road with very back of the grid teams for the most part. He regularly outdrives his machinery. In terms of where I see him going, I know that David Land, the IndyCar journalist on YouTube, thinks that he'll be going to Juncos for next season. My personal opinion is I think it is more likely he goes to AJ Foyt to replace Malukas, when Malukas, I think, probably goes to Penske because Will Power has moved to Andretti to replace Herta in one of the biggest head scratcher chains of dominoes that I can remember in a while. But yes, that with me saying Ferrucci, Michael saying Ilott, and Jeter saying Marcus Armstrong, that means that before P14, I pick up 2 points, Jeter picks up 6 points, Michael picks up 7 points. We pass the halfway point of this bit. We go to P13, where we predicted 2 Lundgaards in a VK, but the actual answer was Christian Rasmussen. Jeter. Rasmussen got his first win of the season. Do we think this season? Do we think that's a fluke, or can we see more victories in the future?
I don't know. Rasmussen's really fun though. Rasmussen's an absolute nut job on the track. There is not a single gap that he will not go for if it's there. Even if it's not there, he'll probably still go for it. That race win was just electric to watch. just like complete go mode right after the restart. He's very quick. There's no debating that he's very quick. I had him way down in my predictions because he's a bit of like a you don't know what you're gonna get. And obviously getting a win massively jumped him up in the points in in a pack of people that were all pretty close together. The gap between 11th and like 17th was like 40 points. So a win is huge in terms of moving him up the standings. And I think that moving forward, he's the sort of person, especially if you put him in a fast car, you'll probably get some really good results and you'll probably have a whole bunch of damage to the car on some weekends. And unless he's able to like rein in that edge a little bit and hone it and refine it as a race skill, which is a really important skill to have. Unless he goes to a big team and is able to do that, he'll probably end up being stuck at a team that isn't like that because, if he gets a shot at a big team and you crash a couple times, that's how you lose your seat.
Fair enough. Yeah. Super exciting driver, but not making many friends in the grid this season. In points terms, this is a fairly big swing in Jeter's favour, because Michael and Mai's pair of Lungards sees us both pick up 8 points, while Jeter only picks up 1. On to P12, and we see the first of the Penske drivers. I'll touch on just how atrocious Penske have been this season. It truly comes to something when the most notable thing that has happened for you this season is you've had to sack multiple chief members of staff because you were caught cheating in Indy 500 qualifying, and despite you basically owning the series, you can only manage to get 2 wins right at the end of the season. It was an absolute train wreck of a season for Penske. You have to assume they'll be back stronger next season, but we'll see. Certainly none of us predicted Newgarden in 12th. What we did predict was a pair of Ericssons and an Armstrong, and what that means for the totals is that Jeter and myself get 8 points each. Michael gets 4 points. Next, as I said earlier, I'll come to Michael on this one, given how lowly he predicted him to come. Michael, it's looking like David Malukas will be moving to Penske next season. Not confirmed, but everything rumored that way. Does he deserve that move on the basis of 2025?
Yeah, I think Malukas is one who, obviously, when I put him low in the predictions, was the real giveaway that I didn't really know that much, and was the one where I felt the reaction that got from UZ when that happened. I'm like, oh, this is the one that's going to bite me in the backside, isn't it? And then I sort of read into him like, okay, no, this guy is actually good, isn't he? I'm literally just like, this is the difference between reading the results of a sport and actually watching it, is someone like David Malukas. So this is one where the more I actually have read into a bit about, about actual, people who know what they're talking about's opinion about him, I'm not surprised to see how badly wrong I got it. And there is the very big chance that he will be getting that move to a bigger team next year.
Yeah, we said Armstrong, Rossi, and Rosenqvist for this one. Obviously, Michael took the big hit on the scoring earlier on from when he'd actually put Malukas down. Scoring for P12 looks like 3 points for me, 4 for Michael, 5 for Jeter. Next, we move into the top 10. 10th place, the second of the Penske drivers, Jeter, Scott McLaughlin. Is that a disappointing season for him personally, or is it just kind of the expected position for him, given how much of a train wreck Penske were as an organisation?
I don't know where to point the blame with this Penske season. Things were just a disaster all over the shop. And I don't know where to point the finger. It's not a good season, but it's also really hard when stuff is chaotic around you, especially when you're in a season where like there's a historic level winner who's just dominating. When your team is floundering, it's really hard mentally. And when things keep going wrong, if I'm not mistaken, Scotty Mac was also in a few big smacks this season. It was him who had the huge one, right?
No, that was Newgarden. If it's the one,
the one where he went upside down and like skidded down the track.
He did do that during either practice or qualifying. But if you're meaning the one in the race, no, that was Newgarden at Illinois.
Yeah. I mean, but you know, I do remember like both of them had big crashes. Penske just had a really up and down season, and I think like it's hard to fight some of those headwinds. I think Scott McLaughlin's a good driver. I think he'll be in a very, very interesting spot next season. I have to think Penske will start to get things right, but I guess you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a weird one for all of the Penske's, McLaughlin included in that.
But yes, we said Malukas, Rosenqvist, and Ferrucci would be P10. What that means for the scores: 1 point for me, 4 points for Michael, 6 points for Jeter. Up, don't click that. Try again. Up to P9 now with Willpower. I mean, Michael, despite finishing best of the Penskes in a historically bad season for Penske, found himself not getting his contract renewed because he wanted a longer deal than they were offered to give. And ended up going to Andretti. Are Penske right to be taking a chance to revive their sort of more experienced, long-standing lineup, or will Willpower be a big miss for them?
I mean, it's always hard when you get these situations when it's the older driver like wanting to have a longer contract, whereas the team wants to have that more flexibility. But it feels a bit like when Penske have obviously had such a mess of a season, to let your best driver go, even though obviously age-wise, I get it. The bloke's getting into his mid-40s. You know, that's why you're trying to be a bit more, like I said, give yourself the flexibility. But when your team is a bit of a train wreck, it feels like you want to have that experience, that proper, like keep that experienced like lineup together, keeping your like most experienced guy, the guy who has literally just done the best for you. Like he has done everything he can on track to prove that, you know, he's still bloody good at driving a car around. So it feels like a risk. I get why in this situation when there's so much flux anyway, you might go sod it. What more? What difference is it going to be changing out a driver as well if everything's getting changed around? But sometimes when you're having that chaos behind the scenes, you kind of need to stick with your, experienced head at the front of it all, actually get out there getting the results. So I see both sides of it. I think it's potentially a risk that you don't need to take. Like I said, when a lot of other things are in flux, when you've got someone like Willpower, who, like I said, is so experienced, so like still obviously very capable of doing his job. It's not like there's been it's not like his results are tailing off or anything like that compared to his teammates. He is still he has been their best driver this year. He is the experience they probably need to keep the rest of the team together. It's a big risk, but and one that I don't think that I would make, but equally I'm pretty sure the people in charge at Penske know more about IndyCar than I do, so I probably shouldn't criticize them too much.
Fair enough. We went for Rosenqvist, Ericsson, Lundgaard, a trio of Scandinavians, which means that points-wise, I get 3, Jeter gets 4, and Michael takes the big Ericsson hit and gets 11 points onto his score. Next we go to P8, which I will cover because it's my boy Marcus Armstrong, or as the initial episode labelled him, Dave Armstrong from Wyndham. Yeah, really strong, especially second half of the season from Armstrong. Another podium on his resume, pretty much done everything other than win a race at this point. It has to be coming. Surely it has to be coming. The one thing I do think he needs to work on, and I think it's true of a lot of F1 junior category drivers, they have to understand the difference in the rules in defending in America. You cannot block, and time again, the junior drivers get done for blocking. We saw it in the last race of the season. Armstrong was running in a potential podium finishing place, but blocked to defend, ended up serving a drive-through penalty and came nowhere. So we said Kirkwood and a pair of Dixons for this one, which means for P8, 5 points for both Michael and Jeter, 4 points for me. Next, on to P7, which ended up being Colton Herta. I'll come to Jeter because Jeter, you said Herta was going to win this season. In the end, didn't even win a race. Was that a mistake on your part, or has this been a bad season for Herta?
I think it's a bit of both. My mind goes back to what we were talking about when we recorded the prediction episode. I think everyone could smell the blood in the water with Cadillac entering F1. Obviously, that announcement was just kind of in its early stages when we recorded the start of this episode. That's now been that's now been fully announced, and in fact, his seat as their test driver has been confirmed. Or his seat as their test driver. I don't know if I said that correctly. And I made the prediction that he was going to win, and my thought was, with the news about Cadillac, if he'd won IndyCar, he would have had the super license points. So I thought he was going to kick on, try and get his super license points, and then get out of Dodge. He didn't get his super license points, so he's going to have to drive an F2. But I think what you guys said was he might be distracted and he might not get those points. And I kind of predicted something, not necessarily because I thought he was going to be the best driver, but because I thought that it would be something that motivated him and he would have a little, something, he'd have a chip on his shoulder that he wanted to go do something. But as it happens, that chip was just a Chip Ganassi car driven by Pelot, always faster. So yeah.
Very fair. We went for a trio of Penske's for 7th place. What that means is that Michael and myself add 2 to our score. Jeter adds 5. On to P6. I'll cover the other of my Meyer Shank boys, Felix Rosenqvist. Again, proving that he is a very, very good driver. He can get poles. He can get fastest laps. He can get podiums. he just doesn't seem to be able to cross the line first. I'm hoping that a second year of Meyershank's technical partnership with Ganassi might start producing some results, because I am desperate. Please, IndyCar gods. I need an Armstrong win and I need a Pro win. ASAP. But yeah, P6, we went for Dixon, Newgarden, and Power, which means that Jeter and myself both add 3 points to our total. Michael adds 6. On to P5. That was Christian Lundgaard. Jeter, is Lundgaard, in your opinion, the surprise package of the season?
I'd say so. I mean, excluding how dominant Pelot was, yes. I think I wasn't very confident about Lundgaard, and I was more confident than the two of you were about Lundgaard. He's had a very good season. And I think it was a bit of a surprise. People weren't sure what was going to happen coming into the season. And yeah, it's, last season he was out of the top 10. It was a big signing coming from Ray Hall, and I think I don't know. People were a little bit unsure with the big move going from a smaller team to a big team, and I think that there was some hesitancy. But it was a really, really good season for him, especially considering how tricky it was to place up near the top.
Yeah, for sure. To finish 5th without winning a race shows consistency. Super impressive for me. But in points terms, it means that Jeter gets 1 point, I get 2 points, Michael adds 5 to his. Next, P4. Michael, you were quite big on Carl Kirkwood at the start of the season. How do you feel like he got on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's put him roughly about where I expect him to be. Is one where I remember looking at, he was one I looked at and went, I saw the obvious progression from him year on year as he's been in IndyCar. It just felt like it was he'd take another step in the right direction. And I'd say that's what it seems like he has done this year. It's another, step up the order overall come the end of the season from Kirkwood. He's one who, as the year's gone on, obviously at the start of the year, like I said, when the whole Andretti thing in F1 about them being in, about them potentially somewhere down the line looking at an American driver. At the start of the year, that was all Colton Herta. Now you hear a lot of it's Herta, it could be Herta, or they could look at Kirkwood. Like, that's the sort of year that he's had. It's like him proving that, yeah, it's not just all about Colton Herta. He is a very capable driver. And I said, it's that progression. It's another step in the right direction for him. It's that, I said, as drivers, you see sometimes drivers will just get better and better and better as the years go on. And that's what it seems like Kirkwood is doing. Each year he takes that like noticeable step forward in his overall position come the end of the season. And it was just, yeah, he seems to have done that again this year. I think it's one position lower than I had him, but it's still, I think, what was it the year before? He was about 7th, I think, in 2024, if I'm remembering right from when I looked at it.
Yeah,
That was about right.
Yes. Yeah, so he was 7th, and like the year before that was 11th. So it's been like he's done quite well each year, and he's just like it's just continued progression of Kirkwood. And like I said, the fact that he started to bring himself into the same sort of like conversations as someone like Colton Herta in terms of how people are viewing him from not just within IndyCar but outside of IndyCar as well, I think shows that really shows that the progression is starting to be noticeable.
Yeah, Carl Kirkwood, only one of 3 drivers to win multiple races this season. A good performance from him. We said it would be Newgarden, Herta, and McLaughlin, respectively. And that means points-wise, I add a big fat 8 to my score, Jeter a more respectable 6, and Michael an even more respectable 3. On to third place, we come to Peter Pan himself. Never seems to get old. Scott Dixon. I mean, I'll cover Dixon because he's just unbelievable. It's like people go on about how incredible it is for Alonso to race in F1 at the age of 43. Like, Dixon is 45 now. He's won a race every year for like 20 years, I want to say. I'm gonna try and when was the last I'm actually gonna look this up on the fly. When was the last time he didn't win a race in a season? It was his second season, 2004. So 2005 till now, he has won at least one seat every single year. He's just he's incredible. And I was very happy for him to win at Mid Ohio this season and continue his record. What a man! We said third would be Award, Kirkwood, and Hollow, respectively, and that means points wise that I add 1 point, Michael adds 1 point, Jeter adds 2. P2, we come to Pato Award, the other member of that trio that won multiple races this season. Jeter, how do we feel about Award after 2025?
In any other season, he's a title contender. 515 points is a very good season. And it's 200 less than Pillow.
Yeah.
It's absurd. And it's hard to talk about one without talking about the other. I don't think Pato can be mad about how his season went because he did really well. He contended in the races he had to contend in. He answered the questions that he had to answer about is he capable of being the lead driver in a big team? And can he do this and can he do that? Like, he had a very good season. Polo just was even better. And it's got to be hard for Pato to see what next season's going to hold because it's, how do you motivate yourself to go and do even better than you already did when you've had one of the best seasons that you've had and you weren't even close?
Yeah.
But I think he can be really proud of the season that he had. It's a really good result. I'm interested to see how long he wants to stay in Indy, especially if Pillow decides to make this his thing and just continue racking up titles. At a certain point, he might go, I'm not beating this guy. Maybe it's time to go to another series. I don't know.
I'm not convinced that would happen. I think both of their hearts very much lie in Indy, but never say never. In terms of scoring, both Michael and Jeter correct that Award would finish second in the championship, which means they both drop 3 points, and I add a big fat 8. So big swing there, basically because I didn't predict Penske having quite as far at a time as they did. And finally, we come to the man who finished first in the title race, won 5 of the first 6 races, ended the season with 8 wins, which is the most, I want to say, since like the 70s. Has even recently been linked with the Red Bull F1 second seat. Michael, Are there any superlatives left for Alex Palou?
No, not really. Like I said at the start of the episode, it was a case of like you look at like he'd won the title 6 races in, basically. Like I think it would have taken like his legs forgetting how to move, basically, and even then, you think he might find a way to still be competitive. Like, yeah, it's you know, as an F1 fan, I'm used to seeing one guy just dominate the whole thing. I thought this was supposed to be different. I've been lied to here. This is false advertising. I thought IndyCar was supposed to be competitive. Alex Palou, you are ruining this. Come on. What are you playing at? But no, it's to come into IndyCar, something like I said that is usually so competitive. And not only has he consistently, obviously, what's this, 4 titles he's at now?
Yeah.
Like, in, I don't know how many years he's been in IndyCar, but like
6, I think.
I'm pretty sure he's like, yeah, he's won the title in the majority of seasons he's been in IndyCar, and now doing this where he's been so insanely dominant and like 200 points clear at the top. Like, do that in in a category like IndyCar that normally doesn't have that level of domination shows just how damn good he is, or at least that he has found his spot of where he is dominant. I know obviously you get his name gets brought up in those like F1 conversations, but honestly, I don't know why he would want to, like why he would need to, because like it's a very different game going to F1 where you're not going to be guaranteed. Like, you mentioned him going into like the Red Bull seat. There's no chance of that happening. Red Bull don't take punts on people outside of their own like junior ranks most of the time. They basically got forced into going for Perez. Like they wouldn't. Like no big team realistically is taking a punt on someone who hasn't driven in F1 before. So if he was going to go to F1, he's going to a team like in that midfield pack, hoping that either he proves that he's good enough to get in the bigger seat, or that that team suddenly becomes good. But why would you want to go from winning all the time in IndyCar to totaling around occasionally scoring points in F1? Like I don't quite get where the motivation would be in doing that when it's not like it's not like IndyCar is some like tiny little sport that no one pays attention to, because I know a lot of F1 fans like to think of IndyCar as basically like they look at it and go, oh, it doesn't get as many super license points as F2, so therefore it's not as good, it's not as high quality, which is absolute nonsense. But like, so I don't like Alex Palou specifically is one where I would be surprised if we ever like. I think we're years away from him going anywhere near F1. Really, it'd be at a point where he's like, I'm bored of IndyCar now. I just want to try something different. And there's a team fancies taking a punt on him where he's at a point where he doesn't care about, like, he can basically get paid a ton of money to tootle around at the back. But when you're in your prime like this, you don't want to be wasting that on driving for, Andretti when their car's probably going to be the worst on the grid, or somehow like wrangling your way into Haas and then being weird Haas nonsense. Just basically don't drive for American teams in F1. Bad idea. Moral of the story: America can't do F1.
Yeah, no, I very much doubt that he leaves Indy, but just reporting the rumours as I've heard them. Scoring wise, obviously Michael and I both said that Palou would defend his title. Jeter went for Herta, which gets him 6 points, which means that the totals for all of this, once again reminding you, points are bad. You want as few points as possible. It means that Michael ends with 105 points, Jeter 98, and I end with 69. Funny
Nice.
number. Yes.
First time for everything.
Yeah. Right. Moving on to miscellaneous. We'll try and rattle through these ones a little quicker, but we are covering an event that lasted for 6 months. There's a lot to talk about. First of all, the constructors title. Jeter and I went for Chevrolet. Michael went for Honda. In the end, it was an absolute Honda blowout because, Penske let Chevrolet down. if they'd had a decent season, it would have been a lot closer. But it does mean, in terms of scoring, that Michael removes 3 points from his overall score. Jeter and I remove nothing. Next, we go to the wooden spoon. This was to predict the driver who would come stone cold last in the in the standings. All of us went for drivers that we assumed would only come in for Indy. That was the right approach, but none of us got the right driver. The correct answer ended up being Marco Andretti, and so all of us have no change to our scores. Next, we go to race winners. Now, this was an interesting one, because the scoring was specifically, if you put a driver to win a race, and they do, you manage to remove 5 points from your score. If you put somebody down to win a race and they don't, you add 3 points to your score. And if you don't put somebody down and they do win, you add 1 point to your score. So this was all very much, how many drivers do you fancy taking a punt on? I only went for 5. I said Hello, Award, Dixon, Newgarden, and McLaughlin. In the end, McLaughlin was the one that was wrong. Michael went for Hello, Award, Herta, Kirkwood, Newgarden, McLaughlin, Ericsson. I mean, that ends up meaning that he had 4 correct drivers and 3 incorrect drivers, I think. Is that right? I need to count them again. Hello, Award, Kirkwood, Newgarden. Yes, 4 correct, 3 incorrect. Jeter, meanwhile, said Award, Hello, Newgarden, Herta, McLaughlin, Power, Ericsson. He basically swapped Power for Kirkwood, but otherwise was the same as Michael, which meant that he also had 4 correct, 3 incorrect. Scoring-wise, that means that Michael and Jeter drop an identical 8 from their scores, based on 4 that were right and did win a race, 3 that were wrong and didn't win a race, and I think 3 that won a race but weren't on their list. So we move on to... No, that's the wrong screen. We move on to the 500 winners. I went for Newgarden. That didn't work out so well. Michael went for Kirkwood. Jeter went for Award. I mean, the 500s this year ended up being taken by Alex Palou. It was his first win on an oval, and he did it in the Indy 500 as part of his ridiculous run. And that means none of us do anything at all with our points. Next, we did 500 only. So this was, of all the drivers who only came in for the Indy 500, who did the best. I went for Ryan Hunter-Reay. Michael and Jeter both went for Kyle Larson. Jeter. Kyle Larson's back-to-back attempt doing the Indy 500 and the Charlotte 600 in the same day. Comments?
No, I'm good, thanks. No comments.
Fair enough. Kind of a reasonable response. Absolute train wreck. Ended up crashing out of both. That's probably the last time he was trying, I think, from my understanding, but you know, people change their mind all the time. None of us are going to get any points though, because the correct answer was Takuma Sato, rolling back the years.
I spotted that was the answer. I had to check this because, like, it turns out not to quite be true. But it was the fact that the answer to the question isn't immediately obvious of what happened first: Takuma Sato's F1 debut or Jeter's birth. That being relatively close sort of gives the impression of how old Takuma Sato is.
Yes, yeah. Takuma Sato, and I don't think reasonably any of us could have predicted him because he was the last person to whose appearance on the grid was announced. I think it was only about a month before that it was finalised he'd be doing the 500. So, but yes, fair play. Sato was very, very impressive. Next, total drivers. We said that we thought that 39 or 40 drivers would appear on the grid at some point. Basically thinking that in addition to all the Indy 500 runners, there would probably be 5 or 6 seat changes throughout the course of the year. There were no seat changes. None. I don't know that that's ever happened. I don't know if everybody went, well, we're not really competing for anything because Pelot's already won it, so let's not spend money paying off contracts. But I've never seen it happen before that, like, everybody just stays put where they are and nothing happens. I mean, we're in the middle of silly season now, but nothing whatsoever happened. And that does mean, because I'll cover this now as well, because we had our silly season question about who we thought would find themselves in a seat that wasn't in one at the start of the season. I said Linus Lundqvist. I think it's possible we see Lundqvist back for next season, but it was specifically to be announced during the season. So, Michael, you went for Kyle Collette. Not Collette's best doings in Indy Next. Do you think there's still potential for him to move into full-time IndyCar at some point or not?
I mean, I'm trying to remind myself because I remember I did check this how he did this year. But I mean, he came second in the end in Indy Next. It's, for being third the year before. It's a bit of the results are there if there's an opportunity. It's not necessarily one that is definitely screaming, banging on the door like give me a seat. But it's one where if there is an opening and they're looking into the main supposed feeder series for IndyCar, he's one of the ones that's been consistently up there. He's put himself in a position where he's definitely, his name will at least come up in conversations you'd expect of who's available.
Jeter, you went for Logan Sargent. I'm not going to ask you to cover that one because it was ridiculous at the time. So I'll ask you like another question about silly season at Indy Next. Dennis Hauger, obviously incredibly dominant in Indy Next this season. One of the greatest first seasons in US open wheel racing that has been seen, frankly. Where do you see Hauger's future, and how bright or not do you think it is?
I think that there's definitely a world where Hauger lands a seat next year at minimum. Obviously, I'd expect that someone will take him on after the season that he's had, plus with the scholarship. He's been a highly touted young driver for a long, long time. I know he was, heavily tipped to do well in F1 as a result of how he was doing in F2. People have always kind of seen him as, one of these people that could be kind of like a next big thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of lands in the midfield. There's a couple seats that we know that are opening up. That there's going to be some movement at AJ Foyt. as we've covered earlier, VK's already left at Dale Coyne. There's a possibility that there's movement at Juncos. If something were to happen at Prema, unless I'm mistaken, I think he was with them at one point in his junior career.
Ooh, interesting. Not sure.
I think I'm not.
Yeah,
I
he
don't.
won the
Yeah, he
F3
raced with
title
them.
with
Yeah,
Prema, and then had a season with them in F2 as well.
yeah. So wouldn't surprise me if a seat were to open up. If that's a landing spot, maybe if not this year, long term.
Mhm.
Maybe he ends up at a bigger team with the scholarship, and then when he has to actually pay his own way for the seat, that could be a landing spot. I don't know. He's certainly going to have a future in this series, if his results this season are anything to go off of.
Very much doing, almost the reverse of Colton Herta. Colton Herta moving from IndyCar to land himself in F2, whereas Alga dominated the feeder series and then came over to do the feeder series. But yes, anyway, that does mean that Jeter gets points for being closest on total drivers by 1. The official scoring was that the furthest person away would add 5 to their score. Because Michael and I were identical, I've added 2.5 to both our score. We split the penalty between us. I'll also add the silly season points now, because having just discussed it, we know that none of us were correct. Next, we move on to portions. This is specifically how many times would a full course yellow come out and it not go to a red afterwards. I went for 45, Michael went for 35, Jeter went for 41. The answer, possibly unbelievably, is 55. 55 times we went to full course yellow. And for me, that is made especially wild when you think that there was a record stretch where no yellow flags came out for like 3 full races and bits of 2 races either side. So in essence, 53 of those came in the last 12 races of the season. I'll try Michael on this one. He might say he doesn't know, and I'll have to switch to Jeter. Any particular standout wrecks in your mind from this season?
No, go to Jeter.
Fair enough. Jeter, any particular notable ones in your mind?
I feel like I've brought them up. There was the big flip in Detroit. And the big flip at Indy, a couple big flips at Indy qualifying.
Yes.
I think perhaps the one that was scariest, I can't remember what track it was, but when the suspension failed.
I think that was Detroit. The one you mentioned earlier was Illinois.
Yeah. The one where like the suspension failed and I forget who it was, crashed into Fro.
That was Louis Foster, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. But that crash was really nuts because he just lost the suspension completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a couple big crashes this season. And also a couple big almost crashes where people ran off the track, but it wasn't inherently a crash, mostly involving Santino. So,
I mean, accurate. Yes, I think the crash you're talking about was in Detroit, but it might have been Toronto. For some reason, those two get confused in my brain, despite being in completely different countries. But yes, in terms of scoring, 55 full course portions. That means that I was closest, meaning -5 on my score. Michael adds 5 to his. Nothing happens to Jeter's. In terms of red flags, there were 2. There was one in. I did look this up. I need to try and remind myself now. Where were the red flags?
Go to our messages because we were talking about this.
Yes, this was. I want to say it was Detroit and Iowa.
One was Detroit. The other one was one was Detroit.
If you can't find it, then
Iowa won.
yes. Okay, I was right, but I appreciate you for checking, DC. Yeah. There were 2 red flags. So interestingly, after all being too low on how many cautions there were, we were all too high on how many red flags there would be. But Michael said 3. That means he is the closest. Gets -5 onto his score. Jeter gets +5 onto his. Next, we go to pit stops. This was how many pit stops would be made by the winners of each race combined. So, basically, the winner of each race, how many pit stops did they make? Add them all up across the season. I said 52. Michael said 60. Jeter said 55. I can tell you that it is incredibly close as for who was closest, because the correct answer, and earning Michael some removed points, the answer is 58. So by
Fuck's sake.
1, Michael removes 5 points from his score. I was the furthest away because I think I forgot about like races they were adding extra laps to for this season. I think my guess is a really good one if you don't factor in the races that now have more laps. But nonetheless, it costs me 5 points. Then we move to the bonuses. Michael, you said Kevin Magnussen starts a race. I mean, given the fact that we have discussed nobody changed seats at all, and he didn't run the Indy 500. So like that kind of tells you how that went. Jeter, you said that more than one race would end under a yellow full course caution. Do you know the answer? I do, but are you aware of the answer?
I know at least one did. I don't know how many did though. I know it's at least one. I'm trying to remember. Like, I think one of the ones that we watched ended under a full course yellow.
I don't remember if we watched the one. Basically, the answer is 2. So you actually did get it correct. The Indy 500 finished under a yellow, and also Toronto finished under a yellow. So that will earn you some points. I said a Scandinavian driver wins a race. I watched back our initial episode, and I said that basically I was relying on Ericsson or Lundgaard, or who's the other one I said stood a chance?
Kiffin Simpson.
No, he's not Scandinavian.
I know.
It'd either be Rosenqvist or Rasmussen.
Yes,
The other
Rosenqvist.
two.
I'm forgetting the one from the team I support. Good work, Z. Yeah, so I was relying on Ericsson, Rosenqvist, or Lundgaard. I did it again. This is how bad my memory is. I can't remember my thoughts from 5 seconds previously. Yes, I said that unless something really weird happened, there was no chance that Rasmussen would help me out getting this question right. Who was the only Swede to win, only Scandinavian to win a race this season? it was none other than Christian Rasmussen in the penultimate race of the season. It's worth saying that this episode was so early in our run, it was done before we even added 2-tier bonuses, which means that there was 1 point offer and you just had to accept it or not. And that means I got 5 points taken off my score for mine being correct. Jeter got 7 points taken off his score for his being correct. And I and Michael rather had a big 8 points added to his score. So we already know the placement scoring, which, as a reminder, was 69 for mine, 98 for Jeter, 105 for Michael. And then the miscellaneous totals, minus 16.5 for me, minus 5.5 for Michael, and minus 15 for Jeter. Which means that in third place on this episode, it is our casual fan, Michael, with 99.5 points. How do you feel, Michael?
I mean, the fact that there was still at least a little bit of doubt as to whether I was going to be last or not until, the last few there, I will accept that. I thought after we were going to get those placement ones, it seemed like every single time you were saying a bigger number for me on like every single position. It's like, and on this one, Z gets 1 point, Jeter gets 2, Michael gets 27, is what it felt like consistently. So the fact that I like seem to be in the ballpark of your scores, I will accept, or at least the ballpark of Jeter's score.
Excellent. In second place, with a very respectable score of 83, is Jeter. Jeter, second, decent finish for you, but you still haven't won an episode.
No, I have not.
I mean, when do you think that win's coming?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Michael also not yet won an episode. Any sign of a victory from you?
Probably not. There isn't anything, I don't think we've had anything go crazy enough yet to match my predictions. Like, there's not been, we need a thing to happen that just everything somehow goes wrong, and that works for me perfectly. Like, yeah, I keep refusing to do the normal predictions, so I need something more crazy to happen. Can we predict like the Irish presidency or something? Because it seems like that's got the potential to go crazy.
I mean, you can make a short about it for the channel if you want. I have no objection to that.
I predict Wesley Houlihan will become the Irish president.
There's the Norwich reference. It took a whole episode. However, winning this episode, and I'll be honest, I'd have been very disappointed if I didn't, given that I follow it obsessively. 52.5 points. I take the title. I believe that's my 4th win, but I could be wrong. But yes. So that's that. That's the end of the episode. Michael, can we get you more into IndyCar next season?
Considering I was promised that this was going to be a more competitive racing series, and then Alex Palou won every race, I feel like you've not done the great job of selling it to me with this season. But potentially, I think it comes down to a bit of finding time to sit back and watch stuff, which maybe I might have next year. I still don't know, but yeah, potentially.
Okay. Jeter, any big feelings about what might be coming in 2026?
I'm excited, among other things, for the IndyCar racing game. I think that'll be a big step forward in growing the popularity of the series.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be a big allure to people who are potentially looking to get interested in the sport, because having the ability to play as the drivers, race against them, interact with them, even if it's just a video game, it makes a difference. I think we're probably going to see more of the same. If I was to make predictions right now for who wins, I'd put Pillow. Other than that, no clue. Probably Award second. And, I'm excited to see. I'm hoping it's not just a formality. I'm interested to see how the grid shakes up because I think there will be movement, especially with how close everyone was behind Pillow. And yeah, it's an exciting time to be a fan of IndyCar. Things are definitely on the up and up. So I'm excited to see where things go.
But for me, as much as Polo won a lot of races, I think it's been a phenomenal season. Polo somehow managed to wrestle the win in a lot of races at the last possible moment. So even if he was dominant, it was exciting. I am already mourning the loss of this season. I can't wait for the new season to come around. I will be following the news obsessively. However, that is that. We will be back soon with some more episodes. I don't know what episode comes after this one. I don't even know what number this is. That's how frantic we are with episodes at the moment. But thank you ever so much for watching. Hope to see you again soon. And remember to always be big mystics, not big mistakes. Ta-ra!